That is joined this morning on behalf of Superintendent Hoffmeister and the Office of Federal Programs. I'd like to welcome you to the MIS2000 Advanced Training with Marcy Bolt. I'm Erin Clapper, Program Specialist for the Migrant Program at the State Department of Education. A couple of reminders for today is to keep your computer on mute unless asking a question, please. This will help reduce down background noise of things. And second is that this session is being recorded and will be posted on the Title I-C webpage soon under webinars. So just wanted to welcome you all and thank you, Marcy, for your time this morning. And let's get started with our advanced training session. Thank you.
Sure. Thanks, Erin. So I am going to assume, since we're doing advanced training, that everybody is familiar with MIS2000. And so this should look familiar to you. I'll do just a quick overview of student data and entering student data. So we're currently looking at the school history. Each panel here is separated into 3 sections. At the top, we have our students' information and their demographic information. And then we have our school history. So these are all of the enrollments that the student has. Some of these would be enrollments that were created when they moved. Some of them could be the recertification process that you go through. Some of them could be created manually by clicking the plus sign to create an enrollment or using the mass procedures. But each of these rows represents a separate time period that the student was participating in the migrant program. So if you click on one of them, you'll see the information about that enrollment. Then just going to quickly look at each of the different types of data that you can enter about your kids. You have testing data, so this would be state assessments. Then there is a health panel. Several states used to use this to collect and keep track of immunization records. I think most states instead have started using the flags that are on either the student's demographic data or the enrollment to indicate if you have immunization records or not. But this is still available if you wanted to use it. Then services. So these are all of the services that you're providing to your kids. We have 2 grids on this one, and you'll notice that the grid on the right is all of the enrollments that we were looking at on school history. So each row here represents one of those enrollments from the school history. And each of the records on the left represents a service that was provided to the student. And when you select a service, it will highlight in green on the right the enrollment during which that service was provided. To add a new service, you can select the enrollment that you want to assign it to and click the plus sign and select the service that you want to add, a start date for the service. So if you wanted to record the student received a mathematics instruction, we can do that here. If there are pieces, if there are data elements that you don't have information for, like maybe an end date or hours, you can leave that blank. You don't have to, and that's not a required field. And then our funding code for migrant funding. And I'll click the check mark to post my edit. And now I have a new service entered for my August enrollment. You'll notice I'm using it, my data is old. This is a demo database that doesn't have current recent dates in it. So that's why we're looking at 2018. There is an option at the bottom to add the services to the most recent enrollment. So if you check this, you don't have to do that first step of selecting an enrollment. Every time you add a service, it's going to add that service to the most recent enrollment that that kid has. So in this case, it would be the 2018 enrollment. So every service that I add, every time I click the plus sign now, that service is going to get added to that new that most recent enrollment. You'll also notice that the start date and end date are going to pre-populate from the last thing that I typed in. So it's going to save you some data entry time. You can just select the service and it'll save it. Does anybody have any questions about manually entering services?
Marcy, this is Erin. I can watch the chat box for you. If there's not any people that unmute themselves, I'll watch the chat box for you and pop in if there's any questions.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks. All right. So there are additional ways to get services into the app as well as enrollments, and we'll look at those in a few minutes. There is one other item down here, change enrollment linkage. So if you assigned a service to the wrong enrollment, you can use this change enrollment linkage to reassign that service to another enrollment. So if, for example, my mathematics service was assigned to the wrong enrollment, I can change enrollment linkage, select the new enrollment that I want to assign it to, and change enrollment linkage. And it will ask you to confirm that you want to reassign it. So that would be like if you had multiple enrollments in the same time period and you accidentally added the service to the wrong enrollment, this change enrollment linkage will let you correct it without having to delete the service and add it back in. The next panel are parents. So you have all of the family information on your COE. Your recruiters, collect that information when they fill out the COE. This is a way for you to update the current family information without changing the COE. So it would be a case where maybe the family moved to a new address and they do not have like a new move. There's no reason to make a new COE, but you want to keep a record of their current address. You can come here and update the address. So you have to choose if you want to update the address for the whole family, and that will apply it to all of the kids that are in that family, or if you only want to apply it to this particular student. When I choose, I select the button, and then it's going to let me update that address. So now all of the kids in that family will have an updated address. And this address information is stored separately from the COE. So we're not changing the document, excuse me, we're not changing the document that the family signed at the time the COE was completed. So this is stored separately in the database. Next, we have our course history. So these are all of the courses that like high school students would have. It works the same way as the services that we looked at. So each course is assigned to an enrollment on the right. And if you needed to reassign course, if it was added to the wrong enrollment, again, you can use this change enrollment linkage. So this one is assigned a year of 11, 12. Let's see. And so if we wanted to reassign this library aid, we can select a different enrollment and change enrollment linkage. Then our last option are documents. And these are documents that you can scan or attach to the student's record. So if you have like an image or a PDF that you want to associate with the student, you can attach and attach a file. If you want to scan a new document using your scanner, you can scan something. So these would be associated with the student themselves. So things that you want to be part of their record in MIS2000. Does anybody have any questions about just the basic things that we've looked at in entering data?
There's nothing in the chat box.
Okay, thank you. All right, so let's take a look at some of the procedures that you guys can use. Let's say each year, you have kids who re-enroll in the regular school year, you have kids who are enrolling in the summer program, and you need to create enrollments for those kids. You can use the mass enroll to enroll a group of kids. So you can select your district, and you can enter a date, on which you want to start those enrollments. So that's going to filter out old enrollments and search for all of the kids there. I'll have to find what's a district that has a lot of kids in it. There's one that has some kids in it, so we'll go with it. So I search for all of the kids who have an enrollment after January 1st. So if that's not appropriate for your school year, so if you want to start in August and find all the kids that were enrolled for the whole school year, you can do that. So the state, you're going to enter, the date that's appropriate for your school district and for, what you're the data that you're trying to work with. From here, anything that we assign in this top area is going to be applied to any kid that we tell it to. So we can enter an enrollment. So let's say we're going to enter a summer enrollment for these kids. So we'll do, let's just do 7/1/19. If we have a withdraw date, we can enter that here. So if you're doing these like, like the enroll date and the withdraw date, you can go ahead and enter the withdraw date here. There is a separate mass procedure for withdrawing students. So if you're doing this like at the beginning of the regular school year and you don't have the withdraw date, you'll after the summer program and you have both of those, you can do both. So our withdraw date, we'll say is 8/3. And then we'll have our funding code, migrant. Our type is our enrollment type. And I believe we want 03 for summer. Grade roll-up is going to look at the grade on the student's enrollment, prior enrollment, and it's going to bump the grade up one level. So if the kid's in first grade, it's going to bump it up to second grade. You can turn this off if the grade is not going to increase. You want them all to just be the same grade that they were in their prior enrollment, and you can turn that off. Then Q records will add all of the students to the student record queue, so you could print out student records for each of them. Now you also have the ability to add services at this time. If you have your supplemental program codes, you can assign all of the services that these kids are receiving. Keep in mind that any service that you apply here is going to be assigned to all of the kids that you tell it to. So if your kids are getting different services, you'll want to do those manually. So when we're using mass procedures, one of the things that's easy to do is enter, a bunch of enrollments or services, and you need to be very aware of the kids and the enrollments that you're creating, and make sure you're entering accurate data. From here, I'm going to assign these. I'm going to create this summer enrollment, and I'm going to assign these two services to all of the kids that I'm enrolling. So by default, none of these kids would get enrollments. I have to tell the app individually which student is going to be enrolled. So I can do that by simply indicating in the due column that I want to enroll that student. So if I were to do the enrollment and these two services. So I'll indicate the students that I want to enroll and to receive those services. And once I've marked all of the ones that I want, I can do enroll. If there are exceptions to the information that is like the global applies to all of the kids, then we can make those changes in the grid. So for example, if the student's grade is going to be different. On this enrollment, I'm not doing a grade roll up. So my kids are going to get assigned the grade that they were already in the school that they were already in. And if something was different, if I needed to assign a different grade, I can use these new grade, new facility, new enroll date columns to assign something specific to that student. And whatever I put in this grid will be used instead of the global dates and information that I've assigned at the top. So if this student had a different enrollment date, so maybe they're 7-5 instead of 7-1, I can assign that different date here without having to, do a separate, enrollment process for that kid. From here, I click, once I'm done, I've entered any, data that's an exception and indicated all of the kids that I want to enroll. I just click the do enroll button, and it's going to give me a summary. So these, it's going to show you all of the kids that were listed. So you'll see that the first one was ignored, and the second one failed because the to district is not found. So it looks like you have there's a piece of data that's required that my database isn't finding. So it's wasn't able to do those enrollments. So from here, you can either choose to keep the changes or undo the changes. So in an example where the enrollment was created, it would show you the enrollment information here that was created. Here we can keep changes or undo changes. If we undo, it will just revert any changes that have already been made. And if we keep, it will go ahead and create all of those enrollments and services. Okay, questions about mass enrollments?
Y'all feel free to unmute yourself and ask questions as we go along.
Okay, so we'll take a look at the other mass procedures then. So your mass enrollment procedure kind of has everything all together, but you might not always have all of that information. So you may simply create the enrollments here without a withdraw date and without services, and then come back later to enter additional information. So let's look at how that would work. So our next procedure is mass withdrawal. So mass withdrawal assumes that you've already created all of the enrollments, and this is just going to update them and add a withdraw date to them. So we'll find our school and we will do our search. And find all of our kids. So here, we're going to indicate a common withdraw date. So let's just say 5/20 of 19. So this is the withdrawal date that's going to get applied to all of the kids that I tell it to withdraw. And here I'll indicate which ones I want to withdraw. And so this withdrawal date is going to get applied to the students that I've indicated. If you have days enrolled and days present information that you would like to enter, you can enter that in the new days enrolled and the new days present columns. If one of the students has a different withdraw date, so maybe the student withdrew on 4/10/19 instead of 5/20/19, I can enter a different withdrawal date, and it's going to use that withdrawal date for my kids. You can also, let's see, my facilities are not filling in there. I see. So from here, we'll click do withdraw, and it's going to withdraw the kids that I've marked. And you'll see in my results that I have students who were withdrawn. Those are the kids that I indicated. And then the kids who were ignored are the ones that were listed that I did not mark to withdraw. So here again, if something doesn't look right, you can undo your changes and go back and fix it. Or if everything looks right, you can keep your changes and it will withdraw those students. And then if you work with multiple districts, you can go to your next district and do your withdrawal there. Any questions about mass withdrawal? Okay, let's look at the last mass procedure, which is mass SP. This one, again, is, if you don't have all of the information, It assumes that the enrollments have already been created. So this is just entering services to existing enrollments. And we can do that. We have two different options by group. So you can define groups of services or by single service. So let's find our kids and do our search. So we want to find enrollments between let's just say and I do our search. So here are all of the enrollments in Altus between those dates. So these are all of the kids who have an enrollment. You can resize things in your grid. So if you can't read something, you can resize it just by dragging. You can also reorder things in the grid. So you can click and hold on the header and move things around. So if you wanted the facility ID to be over here by the enroll date, you can move that over there just by clicking and holding and dragging it over. So from here, we have all of the kids. So we can pick the service that we want to add to them. And then our funding. Then we can enter a start date and end date if the service began and ended on a specific date. Use enroll and use withdraw. We'll look at the student's enrollment and use their enroll date as the start date of the service and their withdraw date as the end of the service. So if the service was something that you're assigning to the whole enrollment, you can use enroll and use withdraw, and it will look at that student's enrollment to get that information. Alternatively, you can uncheck that and enter a specific date that will, get applied to all of the kids. So as before, we're going to indicate the students that we want to add this service to. And if one of them had a different start date, maybe their start date wasn't on their enroll date and it was later, then we can add a different start date. And this, the start date in the grid is the one that's going to apply instead of the common one that we've defined at the top. If funding is different, I assume that all of your services are migrant funded, but if funding was different for some reason, you can use a different funding code. And then if you're keeping track of hours for that service, you can enter hours for each, of the individual kids. Then from here, just like the others, we can add SPs. And it's going to give us a summary of all of the changes. So for the kids who have a service added, it's showing us what's getting added. For those that didn't, they'll just say ignored. And also, as before, you can click undo changes if something doesn't look right, and it will roll back, and you can go and fix things and then add SPs again. If I keep changes, it's going to add all of those services to those kids as described. You can print or save this log if you want to do that. If you save this file, it'll just save a text file that has all of this text in it. So then if you're entering your services, you would just do that same process for each service that you want to add to your kids. So we'll search again, we'll pick a different service and change anything that applies to that new service and indicate the kids that are receiving this one. And if they have different start dates or end dates or hours, you can indicate that in the grid. And do search, or rather add SPs. So this is a quicker way for you to add services to your kids rather than going individually to the MEP services panel and adding them one at a time to each kid. So it can save you a lot of data entry time. Does anybody have any questions about MAS supplemental programs?
There's nothing in the chat right now.
Okay. Supplemental programs, just a note, supplemental programs is another term that you'll see in MIS2000 that's just referring to services. So it's essentially referring to the same data. A supplemental program is a service. If there's any confusion about that. Then you can also define groups of services. So here I have some services that have already been predefined, groups that have been predefined. So if I have the same group of services that I assign to, my kids, then you can assign a whole group of services to your kids. And it works just the same way as the others that we've been looking at. I'm not going to go through demoing that one because it works the same. So those are your MAS procedures. You do have a use list feature. So let me show you what that's about. That comes from your student search. If we come into our student search, there is a student list tab, and you can create a list of kids. So if you have the student ID numbers, you can just type in an ID and add to list. If you don't have IDs, you can also search on key data and search by their name. And then you can select the kid and add to list. So I can add some kids to my list. And from here, you can manage the list, you can remove kids, you can clear the list out and start over. You can queue all, and it's going to add them all to the student record queue. If you click use list, it's going to apply that list to your search. And when you scroll through records, it's going to scroll through the kids that are in your list. So instead of scrolling through all of your kids, it's just scrolling through those kids that are in that list. So if you're doing data entry and you have some kids that you want to enter data for, you can create that list and use it and then just scroll through your list of kids instead of having to do searching between each of them. So you can kind of front load all of the searching before you start entering data. But that can also be used in your MAS procedures. So you can make a list, and in your MAS procedures, you can click use list. And it's going to make me pick a district first. You can use list, and it's going to show us the kids in my list, which did not work the way I expected to. So I think I'll need to talk to Jeff and make sure that that is working the way that I think it does, because I may have that confused with a different feature. But I expected it to use the list of kids that I had created. So I'll make a note and talk to our developer to make sure that's working the way that it's supposed to. All right, so that's pretty much all of the procedures that we're going to use: enroll, withdraw, and SP. Does anybody have any questions about what we've looked at so far?
It doesn't look like it this time.
Okay, then Jose asked me to show you guys some reports and how to run reports. You're going to run all of your reports through SNAP reports. And these are predefined reports that will give you lists for various things. So for example, let's run students receiving services. So this will be a list of kids who have services. So we can run it for a single district using a district code filter. So to use a filter, I just highlight the field that I want to filter on and select a comparison. So if I want a specific district, I'll select equal. So I want my district code to be equal to, and then I type in my value. So whatever my district code is, if it's 25, I'll add filter. And now you can see all of your applied filters at the bottom. District code equals 25. If you change your mind or make a mistake, you can highlight it and remove filter. You can also just double click on it and it'll remove it. So options for filtering on this report are district code, facility ID, and student ID. So if you wanted to see the services for a specific student, you could run it for just one student. Then most of your reports have a date range, or some of them may only use a start date, but most of them will have both a start and an end. If the report does request a start date and an end date, you should enter them, both of them. The start date would be, depending on the report, different. So if I am running the report for a performance period, if it's something where I'm trying to find all of the kids who were eligible during a performance period, I would use the dates for the performance period, which, are September 1st to August 31st. If it's something where you're trying to find all of the kids who are enrolled in a school year, you would use a start date at the beginning of the school year instead. So the dates that you use are going to be heavily dependent on what you're using that report for, and you'll want to use dates that are appropriate there. So if I'm looking for a school year, maybe if my school year starts on 8/10 and goes through 5/15 of the next year, I'll enter those dates. You can enter dates in the future. So if you're running it for, the current school year, you can enter an end date of, the end of the school year. You can also enter today's date. If you just want to run it up until today, you can enter today's date as the end of your date range. But if the report requests an end date, you should enter a value there. So once you have entered any filters that you want and entered your date range, you're ready to run the report. So we'll just click Run Report, and we'll get a preview of the report information. So here I have a list of kids. These are just kids that have services. And I can, from here, I can print it, and then you can use your, print to PDF if you wanted to save it as a PDF. An alternative is to save it as a CSV file. And a CSV file you can take and open up in Excel and work with the data in Excel. To do that, you click Show Data. And you'll get this grid, which is just all of the data that we're using to display on that report. And you would click Save as File, and it's just going to bring up your computer, so you can choose a location like.
Sorry, I'm not sure about that. By the way, you can use your device to instantly connect with your other household Echo devices.
I apologize for that. So we can save this file and save that as a CSV file, and then you can open that up in Excel and choose the location that you want to save it. So from here we can close and then run our next report. If we want to find kids who are under six or under, we can run a 6 or under report. The reports are we try to name them so that they're kind of self-explanatory. You can kind of get an idea of what they do. The random student sample is not going to show up for me because it's not finding the file. I'll have to fix that. And the data entry report, I think is something that we created with Jose. Your current enrollment report would be a list of kids who are currently enrolled. So some of the reports have a description. This one lists students who are enrolled on or after the start date and who are still eligible on the day that you run the report. So if we want to find all of those kids, we can run our current enrollment report. We run that and to get our list. And as with the others, you can print it, you can print it to a PDF, or you can show data and run and save that in a CSV file that you can open up in Excel. Does anybody have any questions about reports? Are there specific reports that you would like to look at?
Y'all, you have MIS questions quite a lot, so now would be the time to bring those up. If you have report questions or some things that she's gone over today, that now would be the time to ask.
Okay, Jose mentioned yesterday running some of these EdFacts reports, which are reports that that he uses to, report your CSPR. You can run these just for a single district. So if we add a filter, you can run it for just a single district. Using a performance period date range. And so when you run it, the only filter that you would really use would be the district code. So if you want to run it just for your district, you can add a district code filter. So you'll run it and it's going to give you a list of all of the kids that would be counted for federal reporting. And if you scroll over, it has a column for each category set that the kid would be counted in. So if it's indicated in that column, then this kid's going to be counted in that category set. So this is a way that you can review your data and make sure that you have all of your data entered correctly. And so I'll let Jose answer any questions or if he has any comments about how he wants you to use that. But he did ask me specifically to show you guys that report. So you can run it to see the list of kids that are being counted there. Any questions about that? And Jose, do you have any comments that you wanted to add about any of these reports?
Yes, actually, I just want to note or to let them know that when they run the report, they will see like a practice for services column. They will see LEP. They will see different columns that come from the school history. That's why it's very important that they populate that, because if we don't have that on the school history, then this report won't be complete. You see here, you have, for example, LEP, you have special education, you have the qualifying arrival date. That is coming from the COE. This report collects all that information, and in here is the real count that we actually give to the CSPR consultant or specialist that actually complete the report. But then we have some other reports that are based on this, but only collect, for example, the PFS. Other only collect services, and the other report only collects the student that's being served. And so reports, they complement between each other. And that's why it's very important that all the data that we need to collect is in place, so the report's complete. That's all that I can say. If they have more questions, they can ask.
Marcy, there is a statement in the chat box for you from Diamond that they don't see that they have access to the reports. The current enrollment report is not pulling up for Julie and Diamond. So I didn't know if that was specific to them or if all districts aren't able to see my current enrollment report.
So it could be, that report isn't available to the districts. I can make any of the reports available. If there are specific things that are available on your server that districts don't have, we can send it out as an update so they have access to that report. So if the current enrollment report is one of those, we can send it out as an update. So when they do the next upload or update, they'll receive that report.
Thank you, Marcy.
So if you want to send me a list of reports that you want to send out, I'll make a note about the specific one. But if you have specific reports that you want to send out, you can just send me an email and I can send them out as an update.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, that's pretty much everything that I had for us today. So if there are specific things that you would like for me to demonstrate or talk about, I am happy to hear them.
Jose, what are some things that you get calls about a lot or asking for help on a lot that maybe she can demonstrate for everyone?
Yes. They ask a lot about how to run the student list. When they do the search, and then the list just for the school district, and how to print it. It's something common that I receive. You can show that.
Are you referring to a specific report or are you referring to the student search?
Yeah, when you are on the student view and you go into search and you do the search by district, and then the student list appears, and then you actually put those students into a list, and then you can actually put those students into a CSV file and print it or save it.
Let's take a look at the features here. So if we do search by district, on the student search on the district tab, we can search for a specific district. We can define a date range for their enrollment, and that uses enroll date. So this will find kids who have an enroll date during this time period. So we can do our search and find those kids. Now, you can right click in a grid and export to CSV. So I assume that's what you're referring to. So all of the kids that are currently displayed in this grid, if you right click in the grid, you can export to CSV. And that will, as with reports, it will save this specific list of kids in a CSV file, and then you can take that and open it in Excel. You can also from here add one or all of the kids to the MIS2000 list that we talked about earlier. So when I click all, I can go to the student list here. And when I use list, it's going to scroll through the kids on that list so that I can work with just those kids. So those are the ways that you can use the built-in student list feature and in MIS2000 and also out.
Marcy, there's a question in the chat box about how can we print a list of all data when it's entered to make sure we didn't miss any data entry?
So I know that Jose and I worked together to make a data entry report a while back. It might have been a couple of years ago. I think that's probably what this is. So you can run that for your district, and it will show all of the information that has been entered for each of the kids in your district. So if they have school history, if they have testing data, services, course history, anything that they have is going to show up here on this list. So that's probably the best way for you to get that information. If you want to, again, take that into Excel, you can click Show Data and save as a file. And then it'll show you all of the information. Just keep in mind that each student will be listed multiple times when you save it as a CSV. So like each service that they have is going to have its own record. So you'll have students listed multiple times in that output.
The district is saying that report's not pulling up for them either. So that may be one to add to the list of to district access to.
Yeah, we can send that out as an update. Any other questions?
Marcy, the data entry report is an individual report per student, right? It's not a file that contains the whole list of students for the district or for the state. It's an individual file.
It actually, it looks like you would run it for an entire district or an entire school. We can add a filter so that they can run it for a specific student if you'd like. But right now, each student is listed on a separate page, but it does contain, all of the kids. So if you would the whole state, it will have one page for each kid in the state. If you ran it for a district, it would have one page for each, kid in your district.
Thank you.
Any final questions or issues to bring up with Marcy while we have her? Okay, well, thank you so much, Marcy, for the presentation today. Again, this is recorded, so you all, if you need to for future use throughout the school year, can re-watch it or re-listen to it. But again, Marcy, we thank you for your time this morning and your assistance, and we'll get you a list of those to add for LEA access soon.
Sure, that sounds great. Thank you.
All right, guys, everybody have a good day.
Good day.
Thank you.